they haven't really clashed here. Back with my parents on the terms like being a woman of color.
Yeah.
My mom, and in Mexican culture, there's this thing called machismo, and it's typically for like, it's not really like a man being very manly, but like him being like in a very animalistic way of like dominating women and doing everything that women to do for them. Like they'll probably sit down and they're like, I expect you to cook and clean, and by the time I get back home there should be food already, or but in the weekend you should be cleaning for me, so stuff like that. Even though I grew up in that kind of household, my mom was very against it, and she's like, and so because both my parents never finished high school. My dad didn't even go to high school. He barely finished middle school. And so my mom was like, I don't want you to end up like me in this way. Like, do not find yourself a husband who's going to expect you to cook and clean, blah, blah. I want you to do your education, and, you know, education is key. You need to do that. If you want to travel, you can't, like, you shouldn't look for a man and expect to, you know, marry and stuff like that. And so she has been like one of the biggest inspirations for me about getting an education. Like so when I graduated high school, that was like a very big accomplishment for me, because like both parents never had that, and so it was really nice getting that diploma, because it wasn't really for me too, it was for my parents and from other family members who were there too, who hadn't gotten their education as well. So it was really, really nice about doing that. And then I remember in senior year, we had a conversation with my college counselor, and we were talking about colleges, and I told him, like, oh, I'm not going to stay in California at all. I'm like, I have to leave the state if I want to learn to be independent and stuff like that. And, you know, they were sad, of course, because I'm their first kid, and, like, that's a big deal for the child to go so far away. And because in the Mexican community, everything's about family and familiar ties in community, they were like, oh, why do you want to go so far away? Why don't you go, like, LA, which is, like, 7 hours away, which is also a school that I got into. But I was like, if I want to learn to be independent and be as a strong person, like, I have to go as far away as possible from you guys, because I know that even if I go to LA, my aunt lives there, and I'll still be close to someone who will probably help me do stuff. And so I'm like, I have to go outside of the United, outside of California. And so that's no, go ahead.
Yeah, but why do you want to be so independent?
Because growing up as a first child, I was very protected, so I didn't really learn how to do a lot of things, because like my mom said, she wanted me to do education. And the thing is, like, with a lot of second generation immigrants like me, we work with our parents. Like, sometimes we'll be working in the fields. And my mom didn't want that, and she's like, I'm gonna do all the hard labor. Like, if, like, I'm not gonna have you do chores and things like that. And so, like, it's very embarrassing to say, but, like, my mom would do my laundry, and she would do my bed and things like that, and all the way until, like, I graduated high school. And so I never really learned how to, like, cook and clean properly and do things for myself, like make appointments and things like that. And so that's kind of why I can't live my life like this. I'm like, if I'm heavily reliant on my mom at 18, I'm like, I just can't. I'm like, if I do this any longer, I'm not gonna grow as a person. And so that was one of the main reasons why I needed to go. And that's one of the reasons. Another reason was to broaden my perspective. I come from a very predominant Latino community, so I was never not open, but I wasn't really aware of any other things concerning anybody else unless they were Latino or Mexican, most likely. And so when we learned about, like, any of the history, I was just like, I don't care. That's not me. I want to learn about my community. And so, and the thing is that, like, because my parents are very old-fashioned too, of course, they have very negative views against other races too. And in a way that kind of influenced me, but I knew that they were wrong, so I never spoke them. But I always had that unfortunate acknowledgement, and so I will say things, and it'll be whatever over there, because everybody did the same thing. And it wasn't until here that changed it. And so that was one of the things that I also wanted to do. I'm like, I can't be living in a community that we're not willing to change so much. Especially because a lot of people are old-fashioned. So I'm like, I can't have this way. And so, so then I got in Earlham, and then I got here. And then I had a lot of very similar views, like very liberal views. But then there will be some terms or affiliations that it didn't make sense. Or I just didn't know, because I was living in a very ignorant community, or living in a bubble. And for one of the instances, you know Jenny, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so me and Jenny were talking one time, and then I told her, like, oh, you're from the Orient. And she's like, that's not what you say. And I was like, oh, why not? And then she told me Orient is, like, for rugs, for, like, things.
Mm-hmm.
And you saying that, you're associating me as a thing and an object. And I felt really bad, because, like, I've never learned that. And I was like, okay, thank you. And she thought I was going to be mad. And she's like, oh, I thought you were going to yell at me or something. I'm like, why would I do that? I'm like, you're helping me become a better person. You're educating me. I'm like, why? I'm here because I want to learn. I'm like, imagine if I say that to somebody else, then I might take it as, like, how you did it. They might, like, yelled at me, something like that. And I'm like, so I really appreciate you doing this for me. Like, I've never thought about that before. And so, like, I don't say that anymore, because she helped me teach me, like, that's not what you say. If you don't know where they're from, you just say, oh, they're from Asia. Or unless you do know they're from, like, Jenny's Chinese American. So I'll say she's Chinese American. So things like that. And so, like, that's what I really appreciate from Earlham here, is that it'll help me go into, like, be close with people and learn to them to be individuals. Like, here too, like, over there we didn't have people who were, like, non-binary and things like that, so that was also very confusing for me. So for instance, like, Nicole, who identifies as they and them, for me in the beginning, because sometimes I'll be saying, like, oh, and she, and then, like, I'll have to, and then I'll stop, and I'm like, oh, wait, no, but they will automatically, like, say, oh, I'm them, and I'm like, I'm so sorry. It's just I'm trying to grasp this. And so that's one of the great things too, is, like, learning about different identities and things like that and who they are. And so I really appreciate that too. And so when I went back home, I think for winter break, it wasn't so much that I saw. It was because since winter break was really short, there wasn't much conflict, but it wasn't until, like, summer break when I was working back in my old high school with other people who went to, like, Michigan and on the East Coast too. And we were learning about, like, how we struggle to, like, on the social norms about how we learn them growing up in this, Mexican community, and then going to places where it's, like, predominantly white, but there's also different races and different people and different everything. And so we were talking about, like, how that's so different and how we think that, and then how we've been conflicting with our parents. For instance, like, both my parents, I think especially my mom, because they're both very Catholic. My mom doesn't believe that, homosexuality is a thing or anything like that. And so that's very strange. Because I've had discussion with her too, because as a bisexual woman too, it's very hard to come to the terms about, like, oh, my mom doesn't believe that I'm this, but I'm just in a phase, or I'm just confused or stuff like that. Or, like, my own, not my father, but the church father saying, like, oh, I should, get help, go to therapy for this thing. And I was like, it's not a mental illness. I'm like, it's been proven, like, so many things, like, sexuality is not a mental illness. And so, like, these will be discussions I'll be having with my mom specifically, and be like, times are changing, and, like, even though some things might have changed, I'm like, we have to embrace our sexuality. I'm like, it's a part of human nature, it's part of us, and we need to know that there's different sexualities and different orientations for them. I'm like, if you're straight, that's great, but if someone's, like, pansexual or gay, I'm like, you need to, if you're against it, you need to hold your views. If not, you need to change them, because these are living people, and I'm pretty sure you're aware that people are dying because of this, because they're different. And so there'll be conflicts like that, especially on sexual orientation, and then sometimes on race too, because I don't know why, but there's a very negative thoughts about Black people. And so but the things, like, we do have Afro-Latinos in our culture, but the things, like, they don't like it when they say they're Black, because there's that negative thing, like, because we don't like to be associated as indigenous either, even though we have a huge percentage of indigenous blood in us, but no one wants to associate themselves with that. They're very Eurocentric, like, oh, I'm more Spanish than I'm more indigenous. And I'm like, but I'm, like, the brown color is our indigenous roots, so I'm like, you cannot deny that. And so my mom's very fair-skinned, but my dad's very dark. And so my dad has more of indigenous roots than my mom would be. And so my mom's like, oh, I'm very white, or, like, white color, not, like, her being white American. She's like, I'm very white, and, like, this is, like, the standard of beauty, because she also has these really nice hazel eyes. And so when I was younger, I really, I was also very, very light, too, when I was a kid. And so I did avoid a lot the sun because I'm like, oh, I don't want to get dark because it was looked really badly upon. And I'm like, I don't want to be prieto as my dad. I'm like, I just don't want to be like that. And so I would wear like these long sleeves, and then sometimes I'll wear my shorts. But if not, there'd be pants, and I wouldn't be out in the sun much. I would be indoors or in the shade, hanging out with friends. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to go out. But of course, growing up, even if I wasn't in the sun so much, my color did change to a more darker skin than I was originally. And so my mom would make fun of me sometimes, and she's like, oh, look how dark you got, and stuff like that. And then and then when you look back to it, it's very sad how we joke about that, like, oh, you're dark. You've been much more prettier if you were just a bit lighter skinned. My mom, in a way, was disappointed that I didn't get her family eyes, because the women had hazel eyes, and then the men had very green or blue eyes. And so she's like, I was hoping you would get one of them, but you're dad, you're dark, and you have your brown eyes. And so there was that. And then my second sister was much more darker than me. But she was more confident in her skin color. She was just like, yeah, I'm like this, and it's cool.
Do you think, what is the source of that confidence?
I have no idea. I think it's because she was more like she hanged out more with my dad. And because my dad was like more in terms of like who the color of his skin was and who he was, because he was like what we considered here like the countryside. And it's like he was like, yeah, you're this and you're my kid. You have everything like me. My dad has this birthmark on his right eye, and my sister has that exact same birthmark but on her butt. So it's really funny. And he's like, you're exactly me. Like you're everything. And so I guess she was more confident with that because she hung out with my dad, who was confident about his. And so while I was more like my mom's kid, that's where the more negativity came into it. And so like I never really liked my my brown skin. And so it wasn't until more into like high school, and then I was a bit more confident. But it wasn't until like here where I was like, I love my brown skin. I'm like, I want to get tanner. I like its color. I'm like, I like the color of it. I think it suits me very nice. And
it's
so
a beautiful feeling. Like I love my my skin. I love how I look. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
I have quite similar experience when I came here. Like, you know, in Vietnam or in those Asian countries, they have this uniform standard of beauty that you should conform to. But like when you come here, you are exposed to so many standards. And suddenly you realize the need to embrace your own beauty.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. This diversity.
Yeah, like I was like when I was younger too. Like I always wanted straight hair because that's what was the beauty. Like thin, tall, which I already was, but like thin, having straight hair, and being fair skinned. And so when I was when I was growing up, like in my middle school and high school, I wanted like to straighten my hair, but I never did it because we didn't have a straightener. We didn't. So I was like, when after a shower, I would brush my hair to the point that it would be flat, and so it would be sometimes, but at the end of the day, it would go up and be curly or be wavy, so to say. And so it wasn't until like later on in high school, like my junior and senior year, and then coming here, I was like, you know what, I'm done with this. I'm like, I like my curly hair. I'm like, it's really nice. I'm like, there's no point in fighting it. I don't want to brush it. I'm like, screw everything. I'm tired. And so like I became more confident in who I am, and then on my body too. Like I was never self-conscious on my body weight or anything like that, because I know I'm in an unhealthy weight, but I'm very confident, and I'm like, yes, I'm extra large, and I'm like, I'm a 16 or 18, and I'm like, it's fine with it, and I'm like, it's not a healthy thing. Like I know that I'm not this size because I'm eating right. It's because I fucking love junk food, but I'm very confident in my body. I'm like, I know that, I just know that like, I'm not gonna change how I perceive myself. Like I've never looked in the mirror and said like, oh, I should be thin because it's what people want me. I'm more like, I need to be thin because I'm overweight and this is gonna slowly kill me in 50 years. Yeah. More like that. But I remember I would talk to some other people, and then they're like, yeah, I hate looking at myself and I want to be thin because it's considered pretty. And I was like, but you're fine who you are. And I'm like, I honestly think like, do not conform to the beauty standards. And I don't know what made me so confident about my own body. Looking back, I don't know what was the source of it, but I just knew like, if I was confident in myself and who I am, I'll be more happier. And I am. I'm a bit more happier of who I am and what I am.